In the last week, there has been some developments at Disney regarding the future of Star Wars. I think it's safe to say that there's a lot of stories that are going to be told through new films, TV shows and video games in the future. However, due to the disappointing box office returns for the latest Star Wars film, Solo: A Star Wars Story, Disney are now reconsidering the way that these films are going to be released in the future. The problem has been said before. The releases of Star Wars: The Last Jedi and Solo: A Star Wars Story were too close together. They were only 5 months apart. Before that, we got a new Star Wars film released in December every year since 2015. The old release cycle for both the original and prequel trilogy was that each entry was released once every 3 years. That way, every time a new Star Wars film came out, it was always a big movie event. And while you could say the same with the release of Force Awakens, Rogue One and maybe The Last Jedi, the release schedule became a bit tired. So allegedly behind the scenes at Lucasfilm, the movie makers are refocusing their efforts on the release schedule of the new Star Wars films. But what does that mean for future films like the anthology films that have been rumoured to be in the works? Well, in this video, I will be talking about what we know about the future of Star Wars as of 2018. In 2012, Kathleen Kennedy was handed the reins to produce the new films after George Lucas sold his company to Disney. Fast forward to December 2015, Episode 7, The Force Awakens, comes out. An amazing return for the series. It became what is currently the highest grossing entry in the series, and it is, as of the time of recording, the third highest grossing film of all time, behind Avatar and Titanic, and just ahead of the recently released Avengers Infinity War. So one thing is for certain, this series are always raking the cash for Disney. Rogue One and The Last Jedi proved also to be huge financial successes. While Solo: A Star Wars Story did have what I see as a good box office, it was nowhere near what Disney expected it to be. Now, in the present, many fans are dissatisfied with how the films have panned out plot-wise. I myself personally did not mind Solo: A Star Wars Story, but that's it. It wasn't a defining film in the franchise. Even prequels, infamous for the terrible dialogue, has some pretty groundbreaking moments. Revenge of the Sith is one of the best entries in the series, and is far superior to both The Last Jedi and Solo. A part of this problem may also be that The Last Jedi has now become one of the most divisive films ever made in cinema history. I already said how I think it should have panned out instead of how it actually did, so if you want to know more about that, then check out that video as soon as you are done watching this. Now we talk about the future of Star Wars. This week, Kathleen Kennedy has signed a new 3-year contract, which obviously means that she is going to be involved for the future productions of the franchise for longer. Kennedy has become a divisive figure amongst the fans, especially after The Last Jedi and how Mark Hamill was treated. So, like it or not, Kennedy is sticking around for at least the foreseeable, unless we get another producer with different ideas. So she will be involved in the making of these future Star Wars projects in some capacity. TV shows. First off, many Star Wars fans got excited this summer after it was announced out of nowhere that the Clone Wars animated TV series is set to return. Dave Filoni will return to oversee production, with Season 7 coming in the near future. As production for the TV shows is different to the films, I think this is actually one of the best things to happen with Star Wars regarding announcements for this year, and this is coming from someone who admittedly hasn't seen the first 6 seasons of the Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels at all. Another TV series which is said to be in the early stages of development is one being made by Jon Favreau, which is described as being set 3 years after the events that took place in Return of the Jedi, and it will feature motion capture. I have always wanted a Star Wars live-action TV series, so this is something I can get on board with. Plus, I have been really impressed with Jon Favreau's work, so I'll be eagerly waiting for this to come out. films. The next thing we know about without any doubt is that the sequel trilogy is ending at the end of next year with the as of yet untitled Star Wars Episode 9. All we know about this is that most of the cast from The Last Jedi are coming back, including, surprisingly, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill is coming back as well. So both of them are coming back as the Skywalker twins. That's a good thing. Finally, Billy D. Williams is coming back. It's about time too, isn't it? We're also getting new additions to the cast. The most noteworthy one, to me, being Matt Smith, seeing as he played the 11th incarnation of the Doctor in my favourite TV show, Doctor Who. It will be interesting to see what role he plays in this film. I will admit that my excitement for this, though, has dwindled as I am suffering from Star Wars fatigue. Plus, it has a huge task of fixing the mistakes that were made in The Last Jedi. Will it be a success? Well, probably, because it is Star Wars. Will it be the redeeming film in the franchise, though? Well, I pray that it is, but it's got a lot on its shoulders right now. Now, this is where things get difficult, because beyond Episode 9, none of the stuff here has been made, like, official. We are supposed to be getting, at some point, an Obi-Wan movie set in between Episodes 3 and 4, and a Boba Fett movie, which is set to be directed by James Mangold, the guy who did Logan. It seems that the Boba Fett movie is the most likely of the two to be made at this moment in time. The release for it is anyone's guess. It could be 2020, or much later, or not at all. Nevertheless, I hope it happens because Boba Fett is a character that is so beloved by fans. I hardly know anything about him, so if he gets a treatment in the same style as Hugh Jackman's Wolverine in Logan, it could make for one of the best Star Wars films ever. It would certainly be more interesting to me than a story about a young Han Solo. At the same time, I really hope, though, that we do also get an Obi-Wan movie at some point, because Ewan McGregor is great, and I want to know what happens to Obi-Wan between Episodes 3 and 4. We know that he became a crazy old hermit, but surely he come across some enemies during this time. We know that he had one last stand with Maul in an episode of Rebels, so more Obi-Wan, please. An untitled trilogy by Rian Johnson has also been confirmed.
You are the chosen one! Bring balance to the Force! Not leave it in darkness!
Seemingly by Lucasfilm to be in development. My hopes for this right now are very low, given that Rian Johnson directed The Last Jedi. My guess is that this trilogy would be probably what replaces the sequel trilogy's release schedule. For instance, instead of getting an episode 10 in 2021, we might get the first film in this film trilogy instead. This is a theory which could well and truly get blown out the water, though, so I could be just talking complete nonsense. This is just me purely speculating. The showrunners from Game of Thrones, David Weinoff and D.B. Wise, are also said to begin work on a new series of Star Wars films after they are done with the final season of Game of Thrones, which is not too far away now. Now, this is something I'm really excited about, because the work that they've done on Game of Thrones is some of the best work ever done in television history. So having these guys go over to do Star Wars is something which is very exciting. None of the content being created by Rian Johnson and the Game of Thrones creators is known about in terms of storylines, but seeing as Star Wars is set in a huge universe a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, there are many stories that are yet to be told. There are a few Star Wars films that I would like to see on the big screen in the near future. These ideas are ones which I am hoping to discuss in a future video, so stay tuned for that. So for now, everyone, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned right here for more.